I don't know what to call this yet. We'll think of something. So for the longest time, I've been thinking about doing something like really dope for the channel, which is basically taking my favorite scenes from comic book movies and basically breaking down why they're my favorite scenes. This may completely grow beyond comic book movies, but the very first movie that I actually wanted to talk about is Logan. And there are probably going to be 3 scenes in this movie that I think are absolutely fantastic that we'll talk about as the week goes on. But the number one scene is definitely this one. It is the very first time we get introduced to X-24. So we're going to go through the scene. I'm going to pause at my favorite parts, break down why I love the way in which it was shot and how it was done, and then we're just going to nerd out over it. All right, so let's start. So right off the rip, the thing that I love the most is when they tease the monster without showing the monster. So Logan and I forgot what his name is, but they go off and they do their own thing. But then there's just something in the house that is just killing everyone. It incapacitates X-23. She's in the chains and he's just dragging her out. And then we see Will on the ground dead. And then his mom has a shotgun. And then the following scene happens where we get the perspective of, I think his name is Will, coming back into the house. His name is Will. And that's another thing that I really, really like about the shot, which is the horses. So the horses ride off as though they know that there's like a predator in the house. And it builds the tension because you're like, what the fuck could it be inside the house that has both the horses spooked, incapacitated X-23, and is just like sending chills up your spine. Right there. There's nothing better to me than when you tease a monster. So for like a flash, and I remember this in the theaters, that this right here, this scene is how you build hype, because originally all you see is the lower body of X-24, and then you catch a flash of him and your mind melts because you're like, oh my god, they fucking cloned Wolverine and made another Wolverine that's basically young, and that's the thing that's in the house basically killing everyone. Also, there's another funny thing about this scene. So Will, right, when he gets stabbed by X-24, X-24 catches him like square in the chest. And I don't know if you know how spines work, but he's dead. And if he's not dead, then there is no way he pulls off the magical shit that he does like later on. Just a little nitpick, but let's continue. Now, this right here, this is my favorite part. Because you have Logan, right? He runs in, he sees Will is dead. And all he hears are the footsteps as the person descends the steps. And then he looks up. And it's just shock. He doesn't go into fight mode. Like you know Logan, like he would instantly start scrapping. He doesn't go into fight mode. And the way in which it's framed, it's almost as if like he was stuck on the verge of something along the lines of like a panic attack, because he's seeing the version of himself that he never wanted to be. He never wanted to be just a mindless killer for these different organizations that were trying to basically use him, because he doesn't even react. He doesn't react to X-23 being carried by X-24. He doesn't attack X-24. It's almost as if like his entire body freezes when he's coming down the steps. Like he's looking at the reflection of himself, the reflection of the Wolverine that never met the X-Men, that was only ever a murdering animal, and it scares the shit out of him. He's like, I would say that in this moment, Logan is terrified, because he's like, yo, what the fuck is this? And then in his mind, he's like, not only what the fuck is this? What the fuck did you do? And he lets him go. And then is when his mind starts working again and the fear goes away. And then the adrenaline kicks back in and he realizes, wait a minute, if he killed every single person inside the house, what about Charles? And he doesn't hear a response and he goes running upstairs. And this also is like one of the other scenes the parts that I really love from this scene, which is when he arrives into the room, he runs over to Charles, who's in bed because he's just been stabbed in the chest. And he says this, "It wasn't me." Oh my God. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine surviving with someone who's basically been a father figure / best friend for like 10, 15 years out in the desert, and you're terrified at the fact that you might revert into this feral animal, and this person who probably doesn't know any better ends up getting killed by somebody who has your face, and in that moment of them dying, you have to reassure them that the person who killed you was not me. I would never. I remember when this happened, I watered up because I was like, yo, like, can you imagine from Charles's perspective until the older version of Logan runs into the room? He probably thought Logan killed him until he sees Logan again. And then he's like, okay, not Logan, clone bullshit. I love the fear on Caliban's face because he's like, yo, like, he remembers the stories of Wolverine and he's basically seeing that monster walking towards them, but it doesn't have any of the inhibition or the world. I don't know how to put that. It doesn't have any of the inhibition of Wolverine. It also doesn't have any of the life experiences of Wolverine, of the Wolverine that becomes Caliban's friend. Can we also talk about how great of an actor Richard Grant is? Like, any movie that he's in, when you see him, he's the best part of the movie. When he popped up in like Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, I wanted him to have been the main guy leading the First Order from the first episode. What was that? 7, 8, 9? Yeah, from The Force Awakens all the way until The Rise of Skywalker. Richard Grant should have been the person in charge. When he shows up in Loki as classic Loki, absolutely fucking fantastic. He is always the best part of a movie when he shows up. This is like another scene that like I really love, because it's a continuation essentially of the issue that Logan had earlier with Will, but this time they think that they're dealing with Logan, but they're actually getting basically the Wolverine, which is extremely funny because in general Logan's pretty old and he's worn, so he can't do what his younger self would have done. X-24 basically handles this kind of sort of the way in which the old Logan would have handled it, which is he would have popped his claws, he'd have probably dusted like 1 or 2 of them, and then he would have made the rest of them run away. Problem is, X-24 doesn't have any inhibition over the situation, so he just kills everyone. You gotta say that is a perfectly clean that is a perfectly clean decapitation. Just whoop, yoink, gone. It's like, oof. Oh man, oh, Logan was such a fucking work of art when it came out. Another thing that I really, really dig about this scene is, like I said, Richard Grant's a fantastic actor, but I love the way that, because of the way in which X-24 is designed, mentally, he's a child. Across the board, 100% a murderous child that will kill every single thing in the room that's not his dad. But basically, he has to speak to him as though he's a kid. He has to speak to X-24 as though he's a kid that's younger than X-23, even though he's been force grown, because technically he is younger. He's a Flash clone. He was cloned from the original Logan, but then his meta, I wouldn't even say his metabolic process, he was force grew to full adulthood. So mentally, he's a child with just like steroid rage issues, and he has to speak to him as though he's a child, because he's the only person that can actually control him. And this is a scene that fucking broke me in the theaters, man. It's damn near breaking me right now. Oh my god. When Professor X dies, man. Oh man. I remember I was watching this in theater and I was just like this. Fighting back tears. Because you gotta understand, for like a lot of people, if you're in like your mid-30s, you grew up with X-Men. Like, you grew up with the X-Men movies. You grew up with X1, X2, X-Men United, which I think was X3. No, X-Men The Last Stand was X3. And then you had like all the spin-off stuff. But for the most part, you grew up with Patrick Stewart as Charles Xavier. So like, to see basically both of the characters where they are in Logan when you're an adult, but then also losing the both of them, fucking crushing. Absolutely crushes me. It crushed me when I saw it in theaters, and it's low-key kind of crushing me now, and I'm kind of regretting having sat down to watch this again. And I love how like it's his death that activates the rage. Charles's death is what actually activates the berserker rage of Wolverine. Another thing that I find super hilarious is that they have Caliban in the back of the truck, right? And he's 100% basically under arrest. And these idiots leave grenades next to Caliban. Look at him. Like, he's in the truck, he's under arrest, but they leave like active grenades next to Caliban. But yeah, like I said, I'm gonna do way more of these because I like breaking down scenes, especially like my favorite scenes. I may pull a couple of them from Endgame. There are also gonna be a couple of scenes that I'm probably gonna also pull that I'm going to complain about because I really don't like them. But yeah, that was Logan. We're definitely going to do a couple more scenes from Logan that I really, really liked and I really, really enjoyed. And I hope you like this new thing that I'm trying to do on the channel, because like I really do enjoy what I spend a lot of my time sometimes just rewatching clips from different movies that I enjoy. And if I can just sit down and go over a clip and just basically spew out what I'm thinking while I'm watching it, I'm hoping that you enjoy it, and I will catch you in the next one. Peace.